so much for that update. All right, let's bring in our News Nation affiliate reporter, Archith Seshadri, who is live at the scene on the ground there. Archith, what are you seeing and hearing out there right now?
Yeah, Nicole, that's right. In the ground here, this is very unusual for Atlanta, especially in the Midtown area. Normally, this is a very busy time of the day. People walking up and down the streets, maybe grabbing coffee. This all happened around 3 hours ago. And in fact, right here behind me on West Peachtree, that is the hospital, Northside Hospital, the Midtown location. And we see a lot of people shut down, waiting, a lot of people living in this area. We spoke to a guest who are staying at the hotel here. Many people not allowed to go back. So it sort of really put this whole Midtown Atlanta area to a complete standstill. We spoke to some schools, some yoga studios, all of them canceling classes or are on lockdown. Buildings, even as far as downtown Atlanta, about 10 minutes away, are also on shutdown. That's because they still haven't found this active shooter. And again, this all unfolded about 3 hours ago. And just a short while back, we in fact spoke to an eyewitness, someone who was there in the parking garage when the shots fired out. Police initially thought he was the suspect. They later released him, and he said it was a surreal moment to have guns pointed at him. He said in the parking garage, nurses were running, and it was a very chaotic scene. But right now, again, still a very active situation. A lot of media presence, a heavy police presence. We have SWAT team, Atlanta police, Georgia Tech police, MARTA police, as well as choppers on the sky. Many people even patrolling and trying to get a quick sense of what is happening. But for the last 3 hours, Midtown Atlanta, the heart of this unfolding situation, and still a very developing, tense moment here. They still don't have that suspect in custody.
Well, Archith, kind of describe for us what the scene looks like right there, because from what we're looking at right now, it looks very quiet. Kind of talk to us about the perimeter that authorities have set up out there and what law enforcement are telling members of the media right now.
Absolutely. Just to give you some perspective, we took the interstate to come to these back roads, which are normally not super busy at this time of the day. Right now, 3 o'clock Eastern time here in Atlanta. Many of these streets within the block of 13th, 14th, and 12th Street in West Peachtree, that is West Peachtree Street here where the shooting happened about 3 hours ago. All of those are blocked. There's crime scene tape, there is police presence, there's SWAT team, there's cop cars, and a lot of people just waiting around. There's media on this side. I walked on the other side as well, and a lot of the police are not letting people through because they're still not sure if this suspect is still here in this location. Has he perhaps taken the MARTA, which is our train system here in Atlanta, and gone to another area? There was also talks about a carjacking. So there's still a lot of unknowns at this point. But we spoke to some restaurant owners, businesses who are just waiting for answers, waiting on updates to find out what happened. But this is a very busy area, typically right by a lot of the coffee shops, not too far from Georgia Tech. So people usually are out and about walking, but right now, very quiet, very eerie. A silence as people are trying to figure out what exactly happened and just hoping that this comes to a peaceful end in the next few minutes or hours.
Archith, obviously this is a situation unfolding as we are here on television. I know you just mentioned the fact that you spoke with an eyewitness. Kind of walk us through what that person told you. Are they in shock? I mean, have they ever experienced anything like this? And what did they see? What did they hear?
Yeah, it's a very crazy situation to not only be in the middle of an active shooting incident, but then to also have guns pointed at you. We spoke to that eyewitness just a short while ago. He was in the parking garage at Northside Hospital, so he didn't actually see the shooting, but he was a witness to the chaos that unfolded. He tells me, his name is Eddie Mwangi, that he was just trying to escape like everybody else. There were a couple of areas that people could either go into a room or go into the parking garage. He is an electrician, a construction worker in that building right here behind me, Northside Hospital, Midtown. He told me that he was trying to get to his car and just keep going. And it was until he had to pull out his driver's license to show police that he, in fact, wasn't the suspect. He was dressed very similarly. He was an African-American male. He didn't have a mask on. And then he said, this is something that you see on TV, you see on the news. And until it hits you, he was like, I thought it was going to be locked up, thought it was going to be taken away. He was definitely shaken up. We just spoke to him and we'll hopefully try to get that interview for you in the next hour. But he says he was just trying to go about his day. He also did say that in that area, there's a lot of noise. As an electrician, he says there's loud noises, loud pops, and just normal building noises given the work that he does. So he didn't think too much of it until he saw that heavy frenzy of police, the SWAT team, Atlanta police, make their way through when he was taken aback. He said he saw nurses crying, and this is something that you don't especially see at a hospital with people running for cover. And as we've seen in the past few months, there's no shortage of shootings, let alone active shootings in the United States. And now Atlanta becoming the very latest. Luckily, police at this point are not calling this a mass shooting, but there, as we mentioned, there's still a lot of a presence here trying to figure out what happened. In fact, over here, there's people waiting besides the media, people who are trying to get back to their rooms, people just sitting around trying to get answers. What exactly happened, the motive, all of that, we don't have answers just yet. But right now, it's sort of the calm before the storm. Hopefully, people will be allowed to get back. And right now, still no word on that 24-year-old suspect.
And Archith, excellent reporting here. We just have one more question for you before we let you go, because I know you're out there trying to gather as well as you do your reporting. Kind of describe a little bit more in depth what it looks like there in that Midtown location, because Atlanta, obviously such a huge city, very spread out. And for people who aren't familiar with Atlanta, kind of describe what that area is like.
Yeah, so I am from Atlanta. I've lived here for the last 25 years. This area in Midtown is known for its restaurants, its bars. In fact, not a block away from here, there's South City Kitchen. The other side behind me, that's Georgia Tech. So you can just imagine, not too far is the Google headquarter campus here in Atlanta. So you have students, you have people dining and getting coffee, you have people working. So this is a very, very busy area. We're not too far from the Midtown MARTA station as well. So a lot of people are going up and down. And this behind me is where all the scene unfolded about 3 hours ago, the Northside Hospital. So a lot of foot traffic, people taking the buses, a lot of those services now, of course, being stopped or stalled. People usually walking these streets. A beautiful day out here, at least it was until the last 3 hours ago. So it's a busy residential area, a busy area for a lot of restaurants, offices, and all that in the Midtown complex. Screeching halt in the last 3 hours as they deal with this active shooting incident at a hospital of all places. But again, right now, people just waiting anxiously, getting out their phones, trying to figure out their plans. And the bigger concern for a lot of them is, well, how are they going to get home now? Because Atlanta is also known for its peak rush hour traffic. Are they going to be able to get back at a reasonable hour? Can they get back on the interstates? And of course, certainly lots of prayers, people just making sure that there's no more violence and that the shooting is over and that the suspect is caught. But yeah, this is absolutely a very, very busy area, not too far from office spaces, college campuses, coffee shops, and restaurants. So between 13th Street, where we are, and West Peach Street, certainly a busy block of Midtown, and right now, a very active crime scene.
Archith, my producer's just telling me that apparently police have just tweeted that the shelter-in-place order there in Midtown Atlanta has been lifted. So I would imagine that soon you will start to see people be able to get back to their hotel rooms, et cetera, et cetera. Archith, excellent reporting. We certainly appreciate it. We know that this situation is unfolding minute by minute, so we'll probably check in with you a bit later. But for now, we're going to let you go. Continue to do your work there on the ground. Archith, thank you. All right, let's bring in now Michael Alcazar. He's a retired. Back to News Nation now. We continue to follow breaking news out of Atlanta. A deadly shooting there. We know one person has died. 4 people are injured. I don't know if we can bring back the live look there at Atlanta. This has been going on in Atlanta for about the past 3 hours. The shooting happened around 1:30 Eastern time. Looks like we're not able to get that live shot, so let's bring in News Nation affiliate reporter Archith Seshadri, who's live on the ground there for us. Archith, we spoke with you about a half hour ago, and you were just talking, it sounds like, to another witness.
Yeah, Nicole, that's right. Within the last 30 minutes, we spoke to some people who've been allowed to come back in. That's because Atlanta police have lifted that lockdown, that shelter in place, after about 3 hours, blocking off many streets. We've also seen some of the SWAT teams, the Atlanta police vehicles meandering off from this area, which sort of gives us some indication that the suspect perhaps is not here in the Midtown area. Again, that's not something that Atlanta police have confirmed. That's just something that we're extrapolating because of the lightning. But as you see here, the streets are still cordoned off. We spoke to a witness who says that they were locked up at the Whole Foods. That's about a block away this way behind me, right across from the Northside Hospital, waiting for about 2 hours. They probably were there for lunch or maybe making a grocery run, trapped in there, waiting in place until Atlanta police gave this clearance. And earlier this afternoon, we did speak to someone who was in the parking garage, and he told us that police initially thought he was the suspect because he had a similar clothing. He looked like the suspect, maybe a little bit shorter. He didn't have a mask on, but he said that was a surreal moment when he saw those guns pointed at him stuck at the Northside Hospital parking garage. So things have lightened up, loosened up, but police say this is still an active investigation because they still don't have that suspect, 24-year-old Dion Patterson. And as we mentioned earlier, this is normally a very busy, bustling area. Georgia Tech's campus is not too far from here, about a block away. Lots of restaurants, lots of bars. Google's office is around here. So the media folks are campaigned out here. We still see SWAT team. We see cop cars. We are slowly seeing people trickle back in, but still waiting on more clarification and updates from Atlanta police. And of course, 3 hours later, the big question is why.
And Archith, as I look at Atlanta Police Department's Twitter page right now, they are saying that sound will be provided momentarily. That was tweeted out just 3 or 4 minutes ago. So it looks like we will soon have an update from Atlanta Police. But Archith, let's talk about what we saw there live shortly after we stopped talking to you the first time at the top of the hour. We know that shelter-in-place order was lifted, and really just a matter of minutes or even moments later, we saw a huge police presence. We saw officers running. We saw vehicles moving towards something. Do you have any idea what was going on at that time?
Yeah, we did speak to some of the officers here trying to get some clarification on what exactly happened, why they released that lockdown, that shelter in place. And here are some of those scenarios that could have played out. 1, they do have the suspect. 2, they believe that the suspect is in another location, so they're shifting their resources from here in Midtown to another part of town. Or 3, they're all getting ready for that Atlanta PD press conference, most likely in downtown Atlanta. It's about 10 minutes away at Atlanta Police Headquarters, the main area. But I spoke to a friend of mine who actually works downtown. She says that her building was still on lockdown. So about 3.5 hours still in. Some areas of the city opening up, some places still locked down. And that still gives us an indication that they may not have that suspect just yet. But again, with that press conference, we may have a little bit more clarity, a little bit more information on what has happened. Again, we do know that one person was shot, and that was here around 1 o'clock, about 2 to 3 hours ago here in Northside Hospital's Midtown campus, but not a whole lot of other information. And of course, in a situation like this, investigations are typically, they're ongoing, so police could be tight-lipped. They may not release the name of the victims or those who have been killed because they haven't informed loved ones. So still a lot of moving pieces at this moment. Right now, though, we do know that people have been trickling in, so we know this area is a little bit laxer than it was before. But just about an hour ago, you really couldn't walk up and down these streets. There's still a police scene presence here, crime scene tape here. So slowly getting back to normal, but not just yet. Maybe in the next hour, we may have more updates for you, Nicole.
All right, Archith, that was my last question for you before we let you go continue. I know you have to get to that press conference, but the shelter-in-place order lifted. But again, we're not seeing any movement behind you. So is it safe to assume people are not allowed to go past where you are standing there?
That is correct, Nicole. I think at this point, this area, this is 13th Street, right behind West Peachtree Street. We have the crime scene tape cordoned off by Atlanta Police, as you can see. There were a lot more cop cars here. There was more SWAT team. All of that is sort of dispersed out. Again, as we said earlier, that could just mean that they've either caught the suspect or they're shifting their resources to another area. We do know that some people from this area, this is the Whole Foods, you still see the ATF vehicles. There's some police presence there. There's a little bit more foot traffic, and you see cop cars going without the sirens. I also don't hear the choppers from my vantage point. So that, again, means that they're either moving locations because they've either caught the suspect or they're focusing their attention on a different area. But certainly for the last few hours here in Midtown Atlanta, certainly a frenzy. What would normally be a very quiet, peaceful Wednesday afternoon quickly becoming a crime scene. Many streets blocked off, slowly opening up at this point. Again, one person shot, a 24-year-old suspect, Dion Patterson. At this point, we don't believe that he has been caught by Atlanta police. There is a press conference momentarily. We'll, of course, bring you updates as and when we get details. But for now, reporting live in Midtown Atlanta, Archith Seshadri, News Nation.
All right, Archith, thank you so much for that. All right, if we can just have our director just stay on the picture.